Hello and welcome to the Tongue of the Trees. I'm Elizabeth Ashley, the Secret Healer, and today we're talking about what is fennel essential oil good for, or sweet fennel. What is sweet fennel essential oil good for? And if you haven't seen our channel before, we work with these cards. These are the Tongue of the Trees cards, and we'll talk more about those in the second video, which is also free to watch. Have a look at the link down the bottom. Today in this video we're only going to talk about the physical side of the essential oil, but of course all essential oils work on very many levels, on the emotional, on the mental, the spiritual level. They all have safety concerns, they all blend differently, they've got different personalities, and all of that we will address in the second video, as I say, link below. But here let's just talk about the physical side, because that's what essential oils primarily are good for when you first discover them, aren't they? And they're great to use like first aid, you know, just general bits and pieces that are going on in the family. But I would always say, and particularly with something like fennel, talk to the doctor first. If there's anything that's really bothering you, just get it checked out, because essential oils, whilst they don't have side effects, they do have many main effects, and again we'll talk about that in the second video. But with fennel in particular, that's very important. But so I did have a master plan. I've got this amazing fennel plant growing in my garden, and we've got about 6 actually, but one in particular right in the middle of the herb garden is massive, and it's covered in insects, wasps. I've discovered wasps really like fennel, which probably wasn't my ideal thing to invite into the garden, but never mind. We've got plenty of the other stuff. And it looks absolutely magnificent. It's just about to turn to seed, but honest to goodness, you've never seen anything like the rain outside today, and I don't think we'd even be able to see it. It's just like a mist. If I live on the border of England and Wales, and it's a proper Welsh Wales day today. So I cut you a bit. So here we go, so you can see. Actually, this is quite late on in the season now. These were vibrant, bright yellow, and really sort of fluffy flowers, and as I say, it's been covered in insects. The bees kind of like it. There's lots of sort of thrips and little tiny flies all over it all of the time, but the fennels, the wasps in particular, loved it when it was in flower. Now it's just about to go to seed in the next few days. I think just you might be able to see in here, it's just starting to change now, and that is what they will make the essential oil from, the seeds. And I just wanted to cut you the leaves because they look so beautiful. I don't know if you can see in this light, but this is a bronze fennel, and it's the same sort of colour as my hair at the ends actually. It looks so pretty in the garden. And even just, I mean, this is quite a small piece of fennel. Obviously you would normally eat the bulb, wouldn't you, with fish and things like that. I have to say, I don't like fennel. Don't like the taste at all. I don't like aniseedy tastes, except for aniseed balls. I live on those. But so that's a funny thing to say, isn't it? But the herb just has this beautiful aniseedy fragrance, and I have to say I've found fennel to be really quite transformative over the past few weeks in my work, and I'll talk about that more in the second video. But its main things that I use it for are digestive and also hormonal, but that, and actually diuretic. So let's break it down a bit. So it has a very carminative effect. What does that mean? So carminative means that it actually works on the smooth muscles to relax them. So if we have something like constipation, or indeed diarrhea, where we have this griping sensation, then a carminative oil will help to just soften that down. So other oils that work like that actually are also from the same family. We talked about coriander last week. Coriander, it has a white flower, but it's from the same Umbelliferae family. How ironic, because I needed my umbrella to go and get it. See how it makes like an umbrella shape? actually more so that way, isn't it? The umbelliferae. And they're all very much carminative kind of plants, digestive plants. Fennel's very good for nausea and particularly for flatulence. So if you find that you're incredibly bloated or you're suffering from indigestion, you've got hiccups, and the reason why I'm smiling is one of my afflictions over the last 12 months has been acid reflux. And whilst I wouldn't necessarily use fennel for that, you could, but like I say, I'm rather addicted to aniseed balls, so they kind of do the same effect. But when you've got acid, you kind of have this burping sensation for days, and it's painful, you know. And it's painful here in your chest, oddly, because the acid is coming up out of the gut. So anything like that, the umbelliferae plants are very good for just kind of saying to the gut, and just calm down a minute. Let's just lower the levels of the acid. Let's just calm the stomach down. And we'll talk more about the emotional sides, as I say, in the next video. But it's really important to understand with things that are to do with the gut that our mood modulator, serotonin, exists in the gut in really large amounts. So you would imagine that something to do with mood would reside in the brain, and there is small amounts of it in the brain, but it's manufactured in the gut, and 90% of the serotonin in the body is in the gut. So anybody who's got IBS will say to you, oh my goodness, obviously the mood and the gut are related. The more stressed I am, the more my stomach plays up. The more my stomach plays up, the more upset I am. And there's this consistent backwards and forwards play between the emotions and the physical body. Anything to do with the gut, you're going to see that. So to have an oil that will just kind of look at the gut and say, come on, you can see immediately that's a physical response that affects the whole body. And that's the pretext of aromatherapy, really, that we understand that the three are intrinsically connected. And as I say, we'll go deeper into that into the next part. But colic. Now, there's another oil actually that comes from the same, looks very similar, much smaller. If you imagined a smaller version of fennel with these delicious leaves. I mean, look how beautiful and soft they are. Dill. So we don't talk about dill that much in the cards because we haven't done a card on dill, but we will in the extension pack because it is one of my favourite oils. But that softness, dill is what they make gripe water out of, you know. That's exactly it, that word griping, isn't it? That babies get colic, gripe water. So you could, in essence, use a very, very small dilution if a baby's got colic to just rub on the tummy. But there are better oils. Chamomiles, for example, would be perfect for that. I struggle. There's some situations I'm very good at being able to put myself into a situation and think, oh, I would use it that, or I can imagine how that feels, or I empathise for that. But there is one situation that I can never do, and that's when you have no appetite. I've never had a time in my life where I just thought, oh, no, I couldn't eat. No, I couldn't eat. No, that's never happened to me. But apparently some people that happens to. And fennel stimulates appetite, and it's that aniseediness. She says having a complete epiphany about how many aniseed balls she is and how much food she's eating of late, because the other oil that I would use, the one that I would use more than fennel, see, it's not one of my healing clique. It doesn't enter my consciousness that much. We're not great friends. It's not that we don't like each other. She's just not one of my best friends. Maybe we'll get closer. But one of the oils that I do use lots is a very harsh oil called tarragon essential oil. That aniseediness, same kind of fragrance, same kind of taste, stimulates appetite. That would be the one that I would go for. Where I do use fennel a lot is its actions on water. So imagine that your body accumulates water. When does it do that? Well, for me, just as the flowers are starting to turn to the seeds, see how I have this glow of redness? It's been so hot, and my ankles swell up. Always, ever since I had my first pregnancy. And then during lockdown, I fell over and injured my ankle. So we never quite have a day where there is no edema. I think it still has lessons to teach me, that ankle, because it keeps coming back over and over. I think there's something I'm not learning. But what's great is to just to make a water bath in a big big bowl, except I haven't got a big bowl anywhere. There's nowhere to store it, so I've got a really big saucepan, and it's like a big cauldron. And I sit there with my feet in the saucepan. If anybody saw me, they'd be like, what are you doing? And no, I'm not going to tea. But just a couple of drops of fennel in that. It's very cooling, very soothing, and very womanly. And I know that sounds a really strange thing to say, because we're not necessarily talking about hormones, although you kind of can't avoid it with fennel, but we need to get more into the emotional side to get that. But just makes me feel a bit more human. It feels like I'm back in my body, you know, those days where you have been everybody to everybody, you know. Do you ever have that where you have to be mom, and then you have to be wife, and then you have to be best friend, and then you have to do your work, and then you think, do you know what? What about me? Put your feet in some fennel. It's so relaxing, so cooling. The water comes down, and it's like, imagine that edema. It's like you've had to kind of push yourself outwards to be everybody for everybody. You know, it grows. You've grown to be able to accommodate it. And of course, you stood on your feet. So everything's gone down to ground, trying to ground you. Everything tries to ground you, but it's your mind that stops you being able to be grounded. But of course, if it doesn't go into the ground, it stops there somewhere. It stops at your ankles. I'm hearing myself. I'm learning it as I say it. It's funny how you can't say it to yourself. You say it to somebody else. But that time on your feet, of course. Think about when you're pregnant. I mean, my ankles were just horrific. My whole feet swelled right up, and I got these sandals with little holes in, you know, cut into they were thinking they were tiny stars cut into the leather. My feet would actually swell through those. When I took my shoes off, I'd got stars all over my feet. Now, when you're pregnant, do not use the fennel. There are other oils that you could use better, but this idea of moving the fluid is very helpful, very diuretic. So know that you will go to the toilet. There ain't no getting around it, guys and gals. If you use fennel, you're gonna wee. End of. So helpful for urinary tract infections. If you've got cystitis and you are holding, going back to pregnant again. Yeah, I kind of can't avoid it in this video really. When I was pregnant, when I had Amy, I had so many stitches. I was determined I wasn't going to have an episiotomy, and she's got a big head now. She had a big head then. And I tore in a lot of places, and I had 4 layers of stitches. I had a trainee stitcher. So the midwife kept going, oh, I'll just put the next one in to straighten it up. So goodness knows what it looks like down there now. But that kind of was quite traumatizing to me. And what I didn't want to do, I didn't want to go to the toilet. The next day, I could not physically have a wee. I was just holding. Now, if that's happened to you, I'll tell you now, the secret is to sit in a warm bath with no essential oils, perhaps a bit of lavender, but you can kind of do it in the water. I know that sounds minging. But the sweet fennel just really relaxes all of the areas. So if you haven't got a bath and you just think, right, I'm just going to massage, and after birth is fantastic time to use fennel. We'll talk about that in a minute. But what, like I say, it doesn't have side effects. It has many main effects. So what it will do is it stimulates estrogen. So what happens then is it stimulates your milk to come in. So it makes it easier to feed baby. Although I have to say, I have a strong suspicion that the milk would taste of aniseed balls. It will taste of fennel. So only small amounts. Only small amounts, not on the boobs, on the back, around the tummy. Really help you go for a wee, help you relax and to bring your hormones back into alignment again. And so if you've got kidney issues, again, we have a scales situation, we have a pros and cons situation. If you have a kidney issue, in small amounts the fennel will help. In big amounts, too much, you're just going to be weeing, and your kidney's not going to be able to keep up. It's very good to prevent kidney stones though, so if that's something that you're prone to, small amounts. It's not really a conversation for now really, but there's a big difference between treating something acutely and treating something for chronic pain, chronic urine infections, chronic diarrhea, etc. If you're treating something acutely, which was a here today, hopefully gone tomorrow thing, like a cold, you know, then we can use high amounts of oil. But for something like a kidney infection, really low. And to be honest with you, if you go on to buy the recipe hub, and I can't recommend it enough to you, obviously I'm biased, but I would have absolutely loved to have a source like this when I was training. We've put lots and lots of recipes in there, and we really teach you how to use dilution. But to be honest, spoilers, I rarely use more than 1 drop of any essential oil. When we talk about dilutions, we talk about maximum dilutions, but you get good effects by just the 1 single drop. You don't want to be shouting at somebody all of the time, and to have high dilutions of essential oils can feel like that, you know. You're like, whoa, too much, you know. I did a blend myself yesterday. I do some ghostwriting for a lot of companies, and they asked me to do a blend. They give me these pictures, you know, of these lovely places, and I have to create like a blend to kind of describe the fragrance of the area. And one of these pictures was this amazing Bedouin tent, but it was like a Western couple in it, and it was got pillows all over the floor, lots of cushions, and they got these straw baskets, loads of straw baskets over the top of the tent. And oddly, in the middle of it, they got Disney on the telly. I mean, I kind of didn't get it, you know, but still, I wouldn't have wanted to watch Disney in that tent. I'd have wanted to sit quietly, but still. So I created this blend with benzoin essential oil and Champaca Absolute, which is a magnolia absolute, very strong. And I thought, I just want to get that kind of strawness through it. So I thought, oh, I'll put some fennel in it. That seemed to me to be the perfect thing. But just 1 drop absolutely overwhelmed it. And if you've ever worked with Champaca, that's saying something. I mean, that is a loud, strong, really potent oil. The tiniest bit. But because I'd done it wrong, obviously I put it to a side and put it down beside me, and I carried on writing. I couldn't sit in here for much longer. Came out the shed and I just went, oh, I can't wait. Oh, it's awful in there. There's just so much oil. And it was just the 1 drop of fennel and 1 drop of Champaca that had completely overwhelmed everything. So this is how strong it is. We need the tiniest bit. So specifically if we are using for kidneys, tiny. And to do that, the best way to do it is to do lots of carrier oil, then just 1 drop, and then use only a small amount of that. You know, the more carrier oil that you put, that makes the dilution lower. That's probably common sense, but maybe not. Another situation that I use fennel a lot in is cellulite, because this same thing of water retention. So if you are premenstrual and your boobs have got bigger and your belly's got bigger, and everything gets bigger on me, and it's clearly water. It's not Mars bars, it's water. Fennel, just a drop, that's all you need, and 1 drop in the bath if you're not pregnant. Nice, especially when you've got PMT. Lovely. And it's this idea of stimulating estrogen that's important. There's a lot of oils that I would say to you, no, doesn't stimulate estrogen, because mimics estrogen, but I do think it does stimulate estrogen. It's a phytoestrogenic. So situations where one has a depleted estrogen, like PMT, the estrogen's dropped after ovulation, progesterone has come up in the hope that we can support a pregnancy. Estrogen is the molecule of worry. So when estrogen drops down, you're like, you know, you're frantic and ferocious. If you can just put that estrogen back in, just for a little bit, great. But there's a really important thing. Think about what I've said. We're putting the fennel back in. So therefore, if the estrogen goes up, the progesterone must go down. What cannot be sustained? Pregnancy cannot be sustained if you do that. So just be really aware, if you're trying to get pregnant, not fennel. Unless you are very sensible and say, right, I'm going to put 6 months aside to really work on my body, get my uterus into check, really tighten it with rose, get my cycle into check. Am I ovulating at the right time? Am I having a period at the right time? Contraception, great, let's do that. Let's invest 6 months in getting straight. Then perfect. It's absolutely perfect, because it will really, really help your hormones. But if you're trying to get pregnant and you're not using contraception, then no fennel, no fennel. Pulmonary disease I've put on my list, and incidentally this comes from my free book, The Complete Guide of Essential Oils for the Physical Body, and you can download that for free off Amazon and iTunes and all good ebook platforms if you would like to. So pulmonary disease is what's called indicated. That is, the chemistry would say this is a good thing to use, and you could, but there are better things to use. Monarda, eucalyptus, tea tree, frankincense, all of those would be better for pulmonary disease. Pulmonary edema, where one has the water in the lungs, then yeah, this is a good call. This is a good call. Intestinal parasites. Now I have to say, these always amuse me, and I feel slightly like I'm walking a tightrope when I talk about parasites, because really in the Western culture it's not something that we see a great deal of. We see tapeworms and stuff like that, but it's not really that thing, is it? But if you think about Japan and they're eating the raw fish, then they're very prone. So this research comes from Japan, and it would say that fennel would be indicated. That said, look at this beautiful herb, right? It grows so easily anywhere. Why would you use an essential oil? You can eat the fennel. You can eat the fennel seeds. You can eat the fennel bulb. You can make fennel tea. Don't need to use the essential oil. Medicine's there to be had. And last but not least on the list is nervous vomiting, and I think that we've probably established how we get to that anyway. We're looking at the emotional side more in depth in the next video, but we can see how it levels us up, and we know that it's carminative. We know that it's softening the gut. We know that the gut is responding to the serotonin levels. So of course it would be good for nervous vomiting. So there we go. Hopefully you found that interesting and you would like. I hope to see you in the next video when I talk about what is Sweet Fennel Essential Oil good for the emotions, mental, spiritual aspects of our personality, but also the safety side, very important with fennel. And we're going to go across to Budapest to somebody who is so much better at blending than I am and would never have made the champaka mistake. So Gegle Halodi is my co-creator in the Tongue of the Trees cards. He teaches botanical perfumery. He is a clinical aromatherapist, and he is going to tell us how to blend fennel. So what is fennel essential oil good for?